Graham Potter deserves time, but where's the but coming from? But Graham Potter does definitely deserve time in my opinion, because I think that, you know, the West Ham job in itself has become a little bit of a poison chalice. You know, it's easy for us to turn around and say, look at Chelsea and look at all the managers that they've had over the years and look how much that position itself has become the poison chalice. But when you look at West Ham's kind of run under the ownership that we've got, and you look at the managers we've had, and you look at how they've been treated and what's been going on, you can't help but start to think that maybe the West Ham position is the poison chalice. Graham Potter deserves time. Graham Potter deserves time, and that time will allow him to make his stamp on this club. He needs the time to be able to bring his stamp onto this club. He joined the club before the January transfer window. We, as West Ham fans, knew we needed to bring recruits in. We didn't bring those recruits in. And some West Ham fans were quick to jump to conclusions to say that, why is he not doing it? You know, does he think he's more tactically gifted than what he actually is? Does he think he's got enough in the tank at West Ham to be able to get the best out of the players? Or did he know, for the flip side of that is, does he know that West Ham were going to survive and he didn't need to push the boat out and panic? And although we're not mathematically safe, it's going to take a lot for us to go down, and therefore that gives Potter time to really assess where West Ham are, what the squad looks like, what kind of players are available out in the market, and really what direction he wants this club to go in. Now, here lies a little issue with everything that I've just said there, is that if you look at what was said from Sean Wheatston recently in a tweet saying that the board had a clause in the contract that could potentially allow both parties to walk away, and then another tweet that came out stating that West Ham are looking to come away from the kind of director of football model and bring it back to, or allowing Graham Potter and Kyle McCauley to do what they had to do. But David Sullivan's going to oversee what he's always overseen. That's the part that sends the fear of God into me. And I always felt like Tim Steidten's situation was always too good to be true. When I say too good to be true, he comes with a lot of plaudits, but was he really allowed to do his job? Was he really allowed to get his nitty-gritty in? Was he really allowed to get his teeth into the steak and really get in around what he was wanting to achieve at the club? Was he given the relevant tools? Was all of the managers that we've brought in given the relevant tools? Was Lopetegui the real first choice? Was he the second choice? Was he the third choice? Was he ever a choice? Was he the cheap option? You know? I think Graham Potter prides himself in the decisions that he makes with the clubs that he chooses. And I always think back to earlier on in his Brighton career where he was really under a lot of pressure. They were not performing really well at all and fans were calling for him, but then he turned it all around dramatically. Turned it around so dramatically that Chelsea ended up bringing him in. But again, we all know that role is a poison chalice, and I think it really is a poison chalice. Genuinely believe that one could be. They don't give their managers or coaches enough time to be able to turn these things around. And West Ham are seeming to kind of maybe fall into that category. But Graham Potter needs to be given that time and that energy and the finances to be able to turn things around at West Ham for the better. We need an overhaul. We know that overhaul is coming. You know, us in the West Ham Network WhatsApp chat have been talking about who's going in and who's coming out, and I'll do a video over that over the coming days. You know, who I would sell this summer and for what reasons. And I feel like I could generate quite a bit of money, but I'm not saying that David Moyes, Graham Potter needs a lot of money. I don't think he needs a lot of money. I think he needs a very good scouting system and an understanding of the direction he wants to go in. In a game against Bournemouth, albeit we've got nothing to play for, I saw glimpses again of what West Ham are capable of doing, being on the front foot, holding onto the ball, but we just don't have the relevant strength and depth. We don't have the relevant creativity that we desperately need. And I feel like we're getting closer and closer and closer to defensively trying to resolve what we're looking to do. But going forward, we're really struggling because we've gone from being a team that shared the goals throughout the whole squad to really not scoring a lot of goals at all. And players look short of confidence. Talking of Kudus, and I said this in an earlier video the other day, that I feel like Kudus has just fallen off a cliff, and I can't understand how a player of that talent can fall so dramatically off a cliff. I don't remember in my lifetime really having a player fall off the cliff so much. To be honest, from being a world beater, genuinely mean that, like a world beater, to like what I don't know what he's doing every game. I'm really confused actually. So Potter does deserve the time, but the concern lies in what David Sullivan's trying to achieve. Bang, David Sullivan's, got his teeth in it again. He's never not had his teeth in it. And I feel a bit naive. I feel naive to think that I believed that things were going to be right and different moving forward. And this situation we find ourselves in makes me think that maybe I'm too naive on the West Ham situation. And I fell for it again. I don't want to fall for it again. I don't want to fall for the David Sullivan tricks. I don't want to go down this whole route that we're potentially about to go down in the summer, where we're rumoured to sign this player, we're undervaluing players, we're lowballing offers, and we're pissing people off. And we've already pissed for the last several years. We have spent several years bringing our stock down in the transfer market because clubs don't want to do business with us. And if they do want to do business with us, they raise their assets price by quite a lot. And we have to then end up paying over the odds for a player that's not worth the money that they are, for us to then maybe a year later sell them on and lose a lot of profits. And that model is just a ridiculous model. But then when you bring in someone like Graham Potter and Kyle McCauley, you think that that's going to change that whole system and that whole model. But they need to be given the time, the belief, the efforts from the ownership, from the club, from the fans. And the understanding there is that this is the summer that Potter gets his chance to do it. I like the idea. I do like the idea. And I think it's worked out better for West Ham that Potter's come in when, in theory, on paper, we're safe. I think that's going to pay dividends for him, because then he gets his legs under the table and gets to really understand what the club's all about before he really goes and makes his mark. Whereas sometimes a manager coming in the summer, doesn't really know where the players are at. Potter's had that competitive vibe. He's had the Premier League competitiveness. He understands who is capable and who's not capable on their day. And I think that's going to go a long way for Potter. That's why he didn't go out and sign many players in January. And therefore he can start fresh come the summer. He'll know what players he wants. He knows what players will be heading out the door. He knows what players will bring in relevant money, finances, to be able to go out and go into the market and bring in the players that he's looking for, that can determine the way forward for West Ham. So it's easy for us to sit here and make the judgment, but for me, Potter needs the time. I've seen some slight changes. I've seen a little bit more of identity in West Ham under Graham Potter than I have in the last maybe year, you could say. Even under a little bit David Moyes near the end, and then Lopetegui during his whole time. But either way, as much as I'm saying I want Potter to be given time and patience from fans, I do feel like I'm repeating myself, because I said the same with Lopetegui, but I think I'll say that all the time with every manager that comes through the door at West Ham and every player that comes through the door with West Ham. I'm going to say, you've got to give them time. You've got to give them time to try and settle. But, David Sullivan is still there. He's still doing his job. He's still interfering. He's still going to get his little small hands all over every single deal that he possibly can. He's going to piss people off in the transfer market. He's going to piss West Ham fans off in the transfer market. He's just going to genuinely piss people off. And my patience had already been thin with the owners of this club. But if I find out that they are in this summer doing the crap business that they continue to do, it's tiring. It's tiring as a West Ham fan. So here's hoping 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years later, but you could say, what, 5 or 6 years later of making regular content on YouTube, that I personally would be saying, well, this is the year, but we fall back. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. 1 step forward, 4 steps back. We need to change that trajectory. That trajectory needs to move its way up. We need to find that va-va-voom. Fingers crossed it's going to be this summer. Put your comments in, let me know your thoughts. Come on, your hands.